My name is Annie Bayou. I am Cornerstone's International Workforce Agility Officer. And it's just a fancy title to say that I'm working with key clients on how to integrate a skills-based operating model into their organization, or skills-based organizations, it's a buzzword today, and to create better workforce agility along with their renewed strategy around Galaxy. So today, I want to talk to you about scaling AI. And when we say scale AI, it really is about scaling AI culture. And what is HR, and more specifically, L&D's role within that. So you guys can see this provocative title right in front of me. I took my job. And I'm going to just talk about the elephant in the room that probably most working humans are thinking about. And that's, the elephant in the room is, will AI take my job? And no wonder they would ask that kind of question with headlines that you might see that look just like this. BT to cut 55,000 jobs and to replace a fifth of those with AI. So every day we're seeing headlines like that. And to be honest, we're not here, and I am definitely not here to talk to you about whether or not AI is actually going to take your job. I don't know. Now we're hearing maybe in 5 years we're going to be getting some kind of singularity, or we're going to have AGI, general AI, come up. All of these predictions mean nothing today. So when I'm trying to predict whether or not AI is going to take your job, I won't know. However, what I can tell moving forward is AI is not going to particularly, today I'm here to talk about whether or not AI can take your job to the next level. And so if you weren't familiar with the Fiverr ad, that's the real Fiverr ad. AI took my job to the next level. So how do you do that? I'm going to talk about scale. I'm going to talk about what's HR and L&D's role in that. So getting straight to the topic, before we talk about how you can scale an AI culture, I want to talk a little bit about the learning trends that are happening, that are going to influence whether or not you're going to be able to understand these different elements that are embedded into it together with AI. Just very quickly, before we think about what you guys aren't seeing is that technology, as we see, is always human-driven. So just looking at the different specific trends within AI, within the L&D ecosystem today, what you'll see is the first trend is really like everything, everywhere, all at once. AI seems everywhere. It's in the media. Everybody's talking about it. And rightly, the difference between what we see in AI today and regular digital transformation that we've actually known for about 20 years is the acceleration piece. The difference between just regular transformation, like digital transformation, and disruption is the velocity. And so the velocity of AI and how that's impacting it is going just a little too fast, and it's causing this great disruption within the workforce that we have to think about for this year. It is everywhere, and it will continue to be everywhere. But what does that mean for L&D? That means that L&D actually is going to be a little bit more adaptive, because AI and the technology and that speed is going to allow you to do that. The next trend that we're seeing is that the worlds are merging. This is also another technology-driven trend. And what I mean by the worlds are merging, what we see is not only in the era of AI, we're seeing the era of virtual and virtual worlds, whether it's augmented reality, whether it's mixed reality or completely virtual worlds, we see that bleeding over and mixing into society and the way we work. Today, Google came out with a new glasses that kind of looks like a pair of Ray-Bans. And the power of integrating AI and other technologies with that, we have really great possibilities of bringing some of the augmented world into the real world. And what that means for L&D, that means learning is actually going to become more immersive. The next trend that we see, and this is an ongoing trend, because for the last 5 years, a lot of HR have been talking about this workforce agility that we're looking for. And so skills remain the center of your agility strategy. And what that means is that organizations want to move to skills-based operating models or become an entirely skills-based organizations. And just to reassure you, we're not there yet. Some organizations are starting to implement some operating models based on skills. And so what we see, probably 10 years, we're going to get real life examples of corporations that have gone to a completely skills-based model. But for right now, we're seeing it in different areas of expertise in HR. And what that means, if skills is still the primary piece in the skills economy of tomorrow, is that you can be, HR in supporting the business can be more impactful. So learning can have better business impact when you apply skills philosophy inside of it. The next one is really around human centricity, because with all this technology, with 5 years, I think we're going on 5 years post-pandemic, people are still looking for that human touch. Programs around ESG and other kind of human-centered programs, they see the value in that. And what AI can expose in that sense is a necessity for humans to still be in the loop. That's why when we're talking today about replacement or displacement, that's not the right word. It really is work augmentation. And so when you think about that human connection, you know that the key word means democratized, because if we're learning off of humans, if we're learning off each other, everything is either crowdfunded, crowdsourced, or socially collected. We know that for learning, that's going to be a huge part of it. Earlier in the panelist session, Alan was talking about the power of communities. And this is what we're talking about. We've been talking about communities through the era of social media, and yet what we're seeing today is that's still front and center, and it's even stronger today, that human connection and humans in the loop of all this technology. So that's going to be a trend. And then finally, we touched a little bit about this when we're talking about managed services and buying expertise, is a real need for L&D to shift and upskill in certain areas of their activities to face this future-facing strategy that they may have within their organizations. And so when L&D starts to make this change, we're moving from a model that was a little bit more analog of what we knew maybe 10, 15 years ago, analog order takers, to a digitally fluent and data fluent value creator. And that's the new role of L&D. And how you get there is really by upskilling and changing your business model. When you start to embrace these upskilling within your own teams, you're going to create that agility, right? Because the more expertise you have, the more agile your organization becomes. Contrary to what a lot of people think, that I'm going to hire a bunch of generalists and that way I can be very agile. Agility comes with a deep expertise and knowing where to move those skills within an organization, but because you have the technology that's going to drive the movement and velocity of skills. So let's talk about driving AI culture. Is a quote from Max Brooks. Now, Max Brooks, if you don't know him, he wrote the zombie survival guide, like how to survive the apocalypse, the zombie apocalypse. And he says that if you start to build your ark, when you see the first drops of rain, it might be a little too late. And preparing for this kind of cultural shift that you need to support the scale of AI, start now. If you haven't started, start now. And I'm going to give you a lot of really easy, practical practitioner tips for that. But the idea is it's never too late to start. And the second piece of that is if you haven't started, here's some really good ways of thinking about it. So I want to start out talking before all of the culture pieces is to talk about three different areas of, or three different users of AI. And this is a model that McKinsey actually came out with a few years ago about the takers, shapers, and makers. So what does that mean? So takers, that's obvious. Those are people who use AI, right? That means it's potentially everybody in your organization. They leverage AI, whether it's Gen AI, machine learning, or just any other types of AI that can be available in your organization. These are the takers. And building a robust program for everybody is something very important. The second aspect is you're going to have shapers within your organization. And these are the people who are shaping the policies, shaping the usage, shaping the way your organization actually looks at AI. And those shapers have special needs around training, and they have special requirements to do their job very well. I'm going to dip a little bit into that later. And then finally, the makers. Those are the technical profiles within your organization that's going to build or integrate AI into the applications, whether it's internally or for your clients. Those are the ones that need a little bit of special attention when you're looking at your AI Academy. So what does that mean? Let's dive into takers. Takers is special group because the first thing you need to teach every employee is basic AI literacy. The skills they need are really around the good usage, which is what the shapers are going to be building, right? How to use it ethically, what are the values around it? And so as the shapers build out those policies, it is L&D's responsibility to really give basic literacy around that. The second part of those types of skills is we talked a lot about, can you really build a lot of prompt engineers very quickly within your organization? And what is the skills that you need? The skills that you need really around prompt engineering is around basic literacy and communication. So when you're looking about how to upskill this population, be sure to focus not on how to communicate with that piece of technology and how to interpret the data. So that goes into fluency. So your learning map for all the takers are going to look probably a little bit of like the skill set that you see here. When we move over to shapers, this is an organization. These people, they're usually policy driven. Some are anchored in HR specialisms. Some are anchored in IT, and some are anchored in legal. This is the population you are going to train first because they have to understand the impact of the technology into your organization to build the guardrails and the special charter that you might need to do that. And that you see that a little bit more around the governance and implementation and how to think strategically, those become add-ons to building your program. And then finally, we're looking at the makers. When we look at the makers, what we see is the people who are going to build and integrate that. Yes, this is your IT department, but it's a subsection of your IT department, and it actually can include others in a cross-functional setup. All of these skills that you see below here, including, for example, the advanced programming and the people who are actually going to understand how APIs and everything is interconnected. This is where you get the robustness of your program. When you're thinking about some of the points to consider, remember that your AI Academy has to include takers, shapers, and makers within your landscape. That's the first thing. The second thing is understanding that skills is the common denominator when you're thinking about measuring whether or not you're making an impact. You don't want to say to a business leader, I have 15 people or 15,000 people have completed a course in data literacy, or I have a 97% completion rate on our AI values course. What business wants to hear is I've moved 15% of our population from a beginner to an expert level within 18 months in AI, because that's a critical skill that we might need. And so so skills becomes the centerpiece to tracking the progress of that and tracking the progress of your transformation. The next takeaway I really think is important is shapers should be trained first and your team should be trained first. So please remember that your teams are takers. So use L&D organization and HR organization as a whole to really spread this. Start with them and let them be the leaders of change. And then finally, the last points to consider around this is around talent intelligence, and I like to think about data points as a bed of nails. So if you only have a few touch points of nails, or data points around AI and around skills and how you are transforming, it hurts. You're going to fall through if you try to lay on it. But the more data points that you can get using talent intelligence technology, the better, the more comfortable your bed is. And so think about talent intelligence and those data points to track mobility, track skills velocities, track skills progress for your AI programs. It's definitely something that is going to help you keep close to the business and understand really how you can measure that success of your cultural scale. So that was the upskilling piece. I thought an appropriate quote would be from Winston Churchill, who says that attitudes is a little thing that makes a big difference. And I think that we can find a lot of places in our life to apply that, but it's especially impactful here. I want to talk to you today about AI archetypes. And you're going to recognize some of these archetypes. We're looking at typical change management. These archetypes that you want to look for, and you treat each population a little bit differently. And so there are a few that are kind of self-explanatory, but I'm going to, as I am describing the different archetypes, I would love for you to think about you personally and what kind of archetype are you. Now you can go ahead and guess right now and think, okay, I'm probably this, but I'm going to go through and flesh this out a little bit more and you add some nuance to it. Feel free to use the Mentimeter to tell me what archetype you find yourself in. Okay, ready? So let's talk about the first archetype, right? Which is really, this is the easy one. These are the ones that it's called the AI optimist. And I am definitely an AI optimist. And these optimists, obviously, you're always going to want to use the optimist as the champions of change. In typical change management, whether it's any kind of different transformation, you want to identify your early adopters, and you want to take special white glove treatment to them because they are going to be the catalyst for change within your organization. So you should be using AI optimists as your AI ambassadors, just like when we were first talking about digital transformation, 15, 20 years ago, we would look for those digital champions, right? This is the same thing. Those AI ambassadors are the ones that are going to evangelize, but also show others what good looks like. So the way you leverage them in your cultural change is to give them a lot of opportunity to show others what good looks like, involve them in some maybe high-risk projects. You want to make sure that you're keeping them excited but not overloaded. So watch out, you don't want to give them too much. Their excitement will go overboard if you don't create a framework for them, but having a robust role for them within your change strategy is something that's really important. I'm going to do a quick time check. So the next one, so I don't know how many AI optimists are out there, but if you're gung-ho, ready to go, and people need to hold you back and using ChatGPT everywhere, you're probably an optimist. Or you might be an underground user, but I'll get to that in a second. Is the hesitant. So these are the cautious adopters. Like, I want to believe, but I'm a doubting Thomas, and I need to see to believe. So these are the people that you can easily convert into optimist, but you need to spend just a little bit more time with them. So what do hesitants really need is you probably want to give them a lot of hands-on training and expose them to AI very quickly. And you want to do this in very safe environments where they can't break anything, but also a controlled environment where they feel like if they make a mistake, if they upload a file to an LLM that is confidential, you want to make sure that their stress level is very low. So you want to make sure that when you're training them, you're giving them that safe environment where they can make a lot of mistakes and learn from that, because that's what's going to convert your hesitant to an optimist. The other thing that you want to do is pair them with optimists, because when you do, that enthusiasm is very infectious, and it could make the difference between, okay, I was a little bit skeptical, and now I see the real value, and now I'm going to be one of your champions. But you do need to be very transparent. So some of the lookout points for your hesitant is you need to be very transparent about your policies, and you need to reassure them about proper ethical usage and guidelines. This is like really important, because they need to be reassured that you're not going to, as an organization, abuse the way AI is used. And there I'm putting in parentheses the idea of work displacement. You want to reassure them that their job is not in risk, and but they need to embrace AI in terms of potentially finding work augmentation opportunities. The next one that we're dealing with is the AI skeptic. And we see the skeptics are the ones that keep us honest, right? The skeptics are the ones that are going to drive change slower, but when they take a step, it's a sure step. They're going to ones that raise those hairy questions about the usage. They're going to force the organization to take a stand on the way AI is implemented within the organization. But they are also going to be the ones, even though they're a little resistant to this AI change, what you'll see is when they finally embrace it, and we have been able to calm all of their fears around it, they can be really a great motor for problem solving. So you want to involve them. You want to show them proof points where AI can not outperform humans, but AI can collaborate with humans to solve problems that maybe were out of their reach. So really, when I talk about the proof point, the skeptics, they need to see the use cases. You need to expose them to success stories as quickly as possible, testimonials, and even couple them in mentoring, do some reverse mentoring with the optimist to balance out some of those fears. But the one thing you should not do with a skeptic is say that what they're fearful of. You really want to make sure you're acknowledging their fears and that you validate some of them and maybe even share some of those. You can still be an optimist and have some fears. So being very transparent about that and recognizing that they might not be ready, don't push them. Don't ever force a skeptic to use AI before they're ready. But you have a lot of convincing to do before that actually happens. And finally, what's past a skeptic is the AI observer. I am closely watching. I'm not quite there yet. I'm a little bit wary of it, but I'm watching my colleague who's actually looking at this from a different angle, and maybe I'm a little AI curious at how they're doing that. So they probably don't have strong views about AI in one way or the other. They're probably sick of hearing about it. I'm sick of talking about it. But what you can do with the observers is you want to give them low-stake opportunities to not only, you want to train them quickly like everybody else, but you want to give them low-stake opportunities to practice AI. And that might mean just little things around small projects, doing something for your manager or partnering with a peer to have that happen. The observer needs to be invited to do things in a very concrete and very small-stepped way. But you want to encourage them to start looking at AI-related projects. And just like the skeptic, you want to expose them to good use cases, but that's more to inspire them than to convince them that AI isn't all evil. And then finally, what you want to watch out for is you want to make sure that it's not because they're not using AI today that you can ignore them. So make sure that any kind of plan or if you're organizing an AI day, let's get them out there. Let's get them exposed to that. If you have one of the ideas is to drive culture is around creating a prompt-a-thon. Prompts to their manager or to their teams and kind of share prompts that are low stakes and easy to manage. That's something that is going to be applicable for their work. So giving them ideas on how to do that is really great. And finally, I'm at time, and I have one more archetype to talk about. It's really the underground user. And the underground user is really interesting because they're probably experimenting, they're probably doing it, and they might even be some of the best AI adopters within your organization, but you don't know about them, and they certainly won't tell you about them. With this population, what is important is to make sure you're creating that safe encapsulated space for them, because if they're not if they're not looking at how if they're not being in process, you don't want to punish them for that, but you want to make sure that you're slowly pushing them towards the correct usage of that, but you want to keep their enthusiasm around AI really specific. And with that, since we are out of time, I've managed my time really badly. I'm going to just show you quickly on the screen some of the takeaways.
So let's look at the takeaways that you come to, because I think we'd all recognize them.
All right, okay, so the takeaways, obviously, in any cultural change, any transformation, focus on upskilling and reskilling. I think that I gave you enough information around those AI academies. The second part is, obviously, with every one of those archetypes, you need to make sure you're building transparency and trust. And in AI, this is even more important than other aspects of compliance and regulation. That transparency and trust is going to allow adoption to really take off. The third one is really about show them what good looks like. Examples, case studies, testimonials, people talking about it. That's the culture that you need. And I have in kind of the subtext is, can anybody say promptathon? Promptathon, like a hackathon, is something that can really spur the use of Gen AI within your organization in very concrete use case studies that are going to anchor in and help propel your business. And then the last one is around starting small and communicating widely. I keep talking about testimonials, use cases. You don't want to go too fast in this, the ramp up of AI, because you want these concrete use cases. You want people to understand how you can look at how your organization and its specificities fine-tuned to their specific job is going to work. So go slow, talk loudly of success, and good luck with that.